Let me know when you're ready, Rachel.
All right, we are live. I'm going to start the Zoom recording. All set.
Thank you so much. Well, welcome in everyone. So nice to have you here on August 21st at 6 o'clock for the PCEF Committee meeting. Next slide, please. So this is a virtual meeting, as you can tell. Committee meetings are open to the public, and the public's invited to comment at around 6:05. So public comment will start soon. There will be a break around 7 o'clock this evening. There will be no online discussion available during the break. There is a chat box open for introductions and for noting public comment interest. All other items, host only chats for PCEF staff. Please raise your hand electronically, used by committee and presenters only. Video on for committee presenters, please. Microphone, public members, please be muted. Recording of this meeting will reside on the website, and captioning is available for show subtitles. So next slide, please. I'd love to go over our agenda. We are going to welcome new committee members, yay, and then we'll have public comment, program updates, the annual CIP review process update, then funding shift between CIP Strategic Program 1 and Strategic Program 25. This is an action item, and we will use our modified consensus decision-making process. We'll take a break, and then we'll have a conversation about PCEF and the mayor's executive order in compliance with federal non-discrimination laws, and then we will adjourn. So I would love us to welcome our new committee members, and after each wonderful new committee member gives a brief introduction, I would love the rest of the committee to come in one at a time and just give us a brief introduction also. So welcome in Anna Allen. If you're here, unmute and tell us a little bit about yourself.
I am here. I apologize. I was picking my daughter up from her father, and so it took a little bit longer to get home with traffic. So thanks for the flexibility. And if you hear some noise in the background, it's my daughter playing with her new Wally toy. So hi, everybody. I'm Anna Allen. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently serve as the Regional Government Affairs Director for the Columbia River Intertribal Fish Commission. And I'm a member of the Shoshone-Bannock tribes. Prior to my current role, I served as the Tribal Affairs Advisor at Multnomah County, and was also the interim director of the Office of Community Involvement, and also worked in Central Oregon as the Equity and Inclusion Director for the city of Bend. Very honored to be here.
Thank you so much, Anna. Welcome in. Andre Lightsey Walker, welcome in.
Thank you so much. Can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Good evening, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here with you all. My name is Andre Lightsey Walker. I use he, him pronouns. Currently, I'm a senior transportation planner at Metro. Come from a background in community service. I used to work at the Street Trust, the policy and programs manager there. I'm a fourth generation Portlander, so my great grandparents moved to the city in the 1930s, and happy to say that my grandpa actually lives in the house he was born in inner Northeast Portland. And so just very committed to the city, really excited about the PCEF program, excited to bring my expertise as well as learn from you all. So thank you so much for the opportunity, and really looking forward to working with you all.
Thank you so much. Welcome in. Tracy, would you like to kick us off for the current PCEF committee members? And you can just popcorn over to the next person.
Yeah, and are you looking for us to give a more in-depth description, or just say hello? My name is Tracy Scott. I'm a PCEF member and recently appointed co-chair. I'll popcorn this over to I don't see D'Angelo. Are you there? At least I don't see you, but I'm going to popcorn it over to you. I heard you.
No, I'm still here for the time being. No, good evening, everybody. D'Angelo Moaning. I was also appointed to be the new PCEF co-chair, committee member. Grateful for the opportunity. Happy to be here. I will popcorn it over to Faith.
Hey there, good evening, everyone. Faith Graham, she, her pronouns, committee member. And Andre and Anna, it's so great to finally see you here. I know this road has been long, but so delighted to see you again after all these months. So welcome. Let's see, who else do I see? Meg.
Hi, good evening, everybody. I'll be on camera in just a second. I'm arriving late after an in-person activity. And I echo my fellow committee members' warm welcome of Anna, and Andre. Andre, we've known each other a while. Good to see you again. And I am a co-chair, or sorry, just a PCEF committee member now, no longer co-chair, and I use she, her pronouns. And I'm going to rely on someone else to call on the next person.
Renfis.
Hey everyone, Ranfis Genentino Viatoro, you see him pronouns. Welcome Anna and Andre to the PCEF committee. So I'm excited that both of you are joining and part of this committee. And yeah, I think was that everyone? I'll kick it back over to you, Dr. Moses.
Thank you so much. Yep, that's everyone so far this evening. So next slide, please. I would love for us to just take a couple of minutes to center ourselves. So I'm going to invite you to close your eyes or to gaze softly down or doodle or look out the window, however you would like to do this. But I invite you to center yourself by feeling your feet firmly on the ground. And then feel the chair holding you, supporting you at your low back and on your legs. Just feel that support. And I invite you to let your shoulders relax. Just let them drop down a little bit more. Deep breath in. And big breath out. And I invite you to open your eyes. Big stretch up. Oh, yes. Oh my goodness. Whew. Welcome in, everyone. Thank you so much for that. Centering really helps us stay present in our bodies. We've had really busy days. It's a warm one, and so centering just really helps us find our grounding. So I welcome in now, next slide, please, public comment. Please indicate your interest in providing public comment by raising your hand or indicate your interest through the Zoom chat. For those joining the meeting by phone, please enter *9 on your phone to indicate your interest in providing public comment. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. So, do we have anyone who would like to provide public comment?
Dr. Moses, we have Scott Strickland signed up.
Wonderful. Please, let's invite Scott in. Welcome, Scott.
Hello. Hello, everyone. For the record, my name is Scott Strickland. I use he, him pronouns. I am the Special Projects Council and proud member of Smart Local 16, representing just over 2,000 sheet metal workers across Oregon and a little chunk of Southwest Washington. I just wanted to make comment. I saw that there was the agenda item relating to the executive order that came out and discussion of kind of the federal uncertainty about continued support for the critical work of diversifying both the workforce and contractor pool, so that folks living in the communities where these projects are being performed can also take part in them as well. I just want to say that our local 16 is critically committed to continuing to support this work, as is our brothers and sisters and other union siblings in the building trades, specifically Columbia Pacific as well, supporting this work through community benefits agreements. I know that I've talked before about our locals' engagement with community benefits agreements that include workforce and pre-apprenticeship requirements, working with diverse contractor pools and supporting those folks. We really are committed to that work, and will continue to be committed to that work through TBAs and PLAs. So just wanted to thank, I know PCEF has been supportive of that work in the past, wanted to really recognize and appreciate everyone here for their work on that, and just note our commitment moving forward. And I'll drop my email in the chat in case there's anything that I can do to facilitate that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Scott. Appreciate that. There was also emailed public comment by Kala Franklin. So I want to acknowledge that. That'll be posted on the website. Is there anyone else that would like to give public comment this evening? Go ahead, D'Angelo.
I just have my hand raised in the event that there are no public comments, but if there are no further ones, then I'll speak afterwards.
Okay. So there being no more public comments, let's move on to the next item. D'Angelo, go right ahead.
Yeah, I learned this from my previous co-chair, Meg. I want to appreciate both her and Ramphis both for their tireless work in moving the committee to this point. And I want to be very clear in saying that we are not starting a new chapter. We are simply picking up on the work that was performed by our previous co-chairs on our committee members. And we look forward, myself and Tracy look forward to carrying the torch, so to speak. I also want to appreciate Scott's intentionality in stating the commitments to remain centered with equity populations and diversifying the workforce. I think it's very important, especially in the times that we're in now. So just knowing that we have that support within the committee and externally is very much appreciated, and we'll keep doing what we can to make sure that we're still building that workforce. And then to address the online, or not the online comment, the comment that was emailed in about, and I have it up over here, about providing green energy and non-petroleum based go-karts for Oaks Park. I, like many other folks who either have lived in Portland for a long time or were born and raised here, have very fond memories of Oaks Park. And so I would absolutely be in support of PCEF providing funding to the park. If there was ever anybody that decided they wanted to submit a proposal or provide ideas, obviously PCEF would be more than happy to support keeping that park moving and in a place where folks can enjoy it. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next slide, please. And that brings us to program updates. And so I would like to invite Sam in.
Okay, it's wonderful to be here with you all this evening. I hope everyone had a moment of break in July. For the record, my name is Sam Barassa, Program Manager with the Portland Clean Energy Community Benefits Fund program. And I'm just going to give you all a handful of updates here before we get on to the meat of the program. Core to our work is our annual community grants process. And so we are in, just smack dab in the middle of our community grants process, maybe a little further than the middle. We're currently underway with more than 24 panel meetings that are getting underway to review all the grant proposals. What that means is that we've completed our eligibility and technical review phases. And so this week we have been communicating with applicants on their status in that regard, whether they passed eligibility and technical review and whether they're on to scoring panels. Or not really just whether they've moved forward beyond eligibility. We expect to complete those panel meetings here in the early week, in the first week of September, and then start moving into the vetting of the applicants and then the portfolio balancing discussions And so that's a lot of the work that we're doing. And we're also at the same time working to find ideally time with our city council to do a work session just to talk about our process. Separate from, so moving on from community grants, Cooling Portland. This is, as we're heading into a pretty hot weekend here, starting tomorrow, and what's going to run for many days. I just wanted to acknowledge this program that was just an idea that we were fumbling along and trying to make into something real. It's fortunately something very real, and we've exceeded this year's goals by installing 18,000 units already, or not installing 18,000, but we've hit our total goals and exceeded our goals to date. This year goal was to get to 18,000 units. We've already hit that mark, and now we're over 19,000 units. So that program is busy and humming along and providing much needed cooling to folks, and continues to be a beacon for many folks in this moment. And so this will be something that I certainly expect we'll come back and discuss as we enter our final year of that program next year, and what's next beyond that. And so I just want to acknowledge that those conversations are certainly beginning to happen internally. All right. And then I just want to give you updates on a handful of strategic programs. As you know, since the passage of the Climate Investment Plan, we've been working busily to stand up many of our programs, some of which, as you'll hear about later today, have been stood up and are, at the other end of the journey, whereas we have many of our programs that are just getting underway. And so we have our strategic program too. We shared this before, but we're still in contract development process. This is for clean energy improvements in unregulated multifamily housing. Our largest program in the Climate Investment Plan, which is our strategic program 3, this is clean energy in single family homes. It's about $140 million investment. We are undergoing a soft launch this month with the aim to onboard our contractors and upgrade our first 10 homes as part of that program. And then that will turn into, after that, just refinement of that program, adjustment, figuring out essentially the platform which folks sign up for, all the tweaks into that program, but we'll then turn that into a full launch later this fall. So that's really exciting. And that's just a major milestone, a lot of work that's gone into figuring out all the systems that need to happen on the city side, as well as on our contractor side. We have kicked off our strategic program 4, which is our clean energy in small commercial businesses program. This was a program that invests in both small commercial buildings, so for the actual owner of the building, as well as tenant improvements, so for tenants as well. So there's 2 different avenues folks could tap into that program, and that's a program that's being administered by Prosper Portland, and that program is going incredibly well and early on with tremendous amount of interest, which we expect will be fully subscribed probably earlier than the 5-year, earlier than the Climate Investment Plan, sort of the duration of the plan. So we're keeping an eye on that, but we've had a strong initial launch period on that program. Strategic Program 5, this was focused on making essentially building resilience improvements so that we could support some of our extreme weather shelters and spaces. And so we're in the early planning stages for a solicitation for the balance of the funding in that program, so that we can roll out with a solicitation early 2026. I'll give just a couple more. Our e-bike program is probably our most anticipated program. We've executed our contract with our main program delivery partner, Resource Innovations. And so we're now in the program design phase, and we're just now waiting to execute one more of the contracts, which is literally at the final stages here, that we're hoping to get through quickly so that we can roll out that program. Right now, there's a discussion around the rollout, but we're aiming, ideally, fingers crossed, to roll out with a pilot of that program here next month. And so that's a program we're eagerly waiting and excited about too, with the expectation that, given the way that other jurisdictions have seen those programs roll out, it's really important to just interface how folks sign up for those incentives, right? Since there's just a lot of demand that has crashed many websites in other cities. And so that pilot period is going to be really important to testing that out and making sure it's right as we roll out with a full program in early 2026. And I think I'll stop there on the strategic programs because we have more. And maybe the one notable one that I'll speak to is one of the programs that came through as part of the amendments we made last year was Mount Scott. We made investments in making that a resilience hub, and essentially, the city was already going to be upgrading Mount Scott Community Center, making significant investments. So we added about 6.2 million in resources to make that a resilience hub. So that's one thing we're really excited about, and that the community center is having a reopening in September, and I think it'll be a wonderful place to check out. It's pretty cool, and so I encourage folks to keep an eye out on that. But that work has been completed, and we're excited about that. So what I'll turn to from there, though, now is it's something that and I think this is going to be something maybe a little harbinger of what you're going to start to see in the next iteration is within the climate investment plan. We made significant investments both through programming and both through grant investments and programming in 82nd Avenue. That shows up in set-asides that we've done for 82nd Avenue from our community grants, specific investments in tree planting and sidewalk development along 82nd Avenue, as well as a more recent investment through Collaborating for Climate Action around investing in TriMet, expanding access and throughput on 82nd Avenue, and doing something more akin to a bus rapid transit light potentially on the corridor. And so as part of that, what we're setting up here is a tour just to start showcasing those different investments on 82nd Avenue to take place on Wednesday, September 17th. It'll be really a walking and bus tour showcasing a lot of our projects, both funded and in motion, and some of the community investments there. And so that'll be a tour that'll begin right around noon and conclude at the end of the day, involving, again, both bus and walking and all that. So we're excited about that. And I think what you're going to see is those are some of the ways in which we're starting to think about our next event, even in our next climate investment plan, and think about how we geographically focus in some other areas. But this will be our first one. And so we're excited to bring community members and others out there, and we'll make sure we get that information out there as the organizing on that continues to move along. So I think that sums up some of the program updates, but I'll stop here just to see if there are any initial questions.
I'm sorry. I'm speaking to everyone without my microphone on. Welcome in, Meg.
No questions. I just want to say thanks, Sam. It's really nice to hear program updates and like a great one. Like these all sound like really great ones. Particularly excited about the Clean Portland one, considering we're going to have multiple days of 100 degrees coming up. But all of these are exciting, and I'm very excited for the tour. I've been an advocate to try to get people seeing the stuff on the ground. So just thank you.
No, it's kudos to the team, and many of our community partners are helping collaborate on bringing that tour together. So thank you.
Anyone else? D'Angelo.
Yeah, I'll be brief. I want to echo Meg's comments of appreciation, especially for Cooling Portland. I've done a lot of work out in East Portland, and I recognize how there is a huge disparity in access to both heating and cooling for populations that are generally underserved. So to have seen this program kick off, to see the work it's done, how it's been ahead of schedule, and how it continues to support communities in need, I'm just very pleased. And thank you, and thank everybody for the work that has gone into getting that done.
Thank you so much. All right, next slide, please. Which is the annual CIP review process update. So Sam?
So before I turn it over to James here, I think, this is, we talk a lot in the team, we're always huddling to figure out how do we contextualize where we're at, since as you all know, we've gone through many evolutions. And I think the climate investment plan was a key moment for us in terms of really orienting folks to where are we going, and setting that future direction around, and after having a little bit of experience understanding what some of what that innovation and community can look like and what those partnerships can look like. And so now where we're at is this is our first really formal climate investment plan update process. And so we're figuring out what that looks like. And we've had challenging conversations to figure out, and how do we land each of these pieces? And what I would say is what we're learning in each of these is this update process really is an opportunity to take stock of where we are on our journey in this climate investment plan. It's an opportunity for us to be transparent around what's working well, what isn't working well. It's an opportunity for us to hold and be accountable in our programming. And what it does is it gives us all little bits as we get to ultimately developing the next climate investment plan. And I think that's really, as we think about, there's always ideas and big ideas we want to turn into reality. And I think each of these moments are ways in which we can tweak, make adjustments, and ultimately set those, take those lessons learned, begin the conversations, ultimately to pour them into the development of the next climate investment plan, which that process will begin in earnest in early spring of 2027. So I want to contextualize that because I know for our team, we're like, what is, what really is in the realm of possibility as we make tweaks, adjustments as we go along, both in relation to and feedback from staff implementation of programming, feedback from council, feedback from you all, but that all really builds to the next plan. And that's really where I start to think about those big moves is what is the next plan going to look like? And so think about this update in terms of what is the information you're getting in each of these cycles to get to and inform the development of that next plan. But this is where we make at least our adjustments and as we sort of get to the end of this plan. So with that, I'll turn it to James to talk about the actual process itself and what you're going to get here in the next few months.
Yeah, thank you, Sam, and good to be with you all tonight, and welcome Andre and Anna to the committee. My name is James Valdez, he, him pronouns, and I work on the PCEF team as a strategic partnerships and policy manager. And I'm just going to provide a very kind of brief summary and update, kind of a status update of where we are in the annual CIP review process, and also wanted to, ahead of this, express huge thanks to the subcommittee, D'Angelo, Robin, and Faith, who are working with us on the process and to really develop the content that will come before you all as a committee later in the fall. So why don't we go to the next slide and I'll walk through where we're at. So these are kind of the different steps of our CIP review framework, and there's intentionality behind this and different work products in each step. And some of this mirrors content that you've all seen before. In previous committee meetings, we've talked a little bit about the CIP review process and provided a little bit of a teaser queued up what we anticipate for this year. Also recognizing that we're developing processes and a framework that we want to be durable, that we want to be able to use these steps and this general framework for next year and the year after, kind of for a annual review that is fairly consistent as we go forward. But the first step, and one that we're still in now, is really assessing and providing information about the status of all the different strategic programs in the CIP. We have a total of 37 strategic programs, as well as all of the community grants that are the core heart of the PCEF program. And so we've gone through that. We provided an initial table and status update of the strategic programs, as well as the status of different grant cycles that we've deployed through PCEF. Then the next step, which is coming up this month and then into September, is an evaluation of both revenue projections as well as the budget, which we get a more full reconciliation of all the previous fiscal year in around mid-September when it comes to city and bureau budget expenditures. And so we'll be able to review that. Also, September is going to be busy in many ways because we'll be starting the targeted evaluation of selected programs where either staff have recommended or the PCEF subcommittee working on the CIP review process have recommended further evaluation review of strategic programs. And we'll be looking at those in the context of the PCEF guiding principles and the different narrative metrics and indicators that we have about the progress of each of those programs. Towards the end of September, the subcommittee will be developing a recommendation of changes to the climate investment plan, capturing both technical changes as well as some goal adjustments that might be needed, as well as what we anticipate is a fairly small number of funding adjustments that are recommended by the subcommittee. Then this will be coming forward for public comment. We'll give the public an opportunity, because this is part of the climate investment plan, to weigh in on the draft proposal and subcommittee recommendation before it comes to you all as a full committee for finalization and for your recommendation to go to City Council. So that is the journey that we're on. And I think we have maybe just one more slide previewing some of the subcommittee topics that are coming up in the next few meetings. Again, very grateful for the time that the subcommittee members are putting in, because we're meeting very frequently, as you'll see here, every 2 weeks, or in some cases even more often than that, to pull this content together and to be able to package it in a way that is clear and indicates the changes and kind of the evolution of the climate investment plan that is being recommended. So at the upcoming September meeting, the subcommittee will see the full list of the staff recommended adjustments to CIP, and we'll start that targeted review. We anticipate that'll take a couple meetings going into mid-September, and then by the end of September, we'll have a meeting where we can discuss, and then the subcommittee can recommend the package of CIP amendments or updates. And so that is the work ahead of us, and huge thanks to Rachel also in helping to shepherd and guide this work. And I did want to give an opportunity, if D'Angelo or Faith, if you want to provide any reflections or input about the process, or anybody else from the committee, if you have questions about where we're headed.
Thank you, James. Tracy would love to have you start us off, and then Faith.
Yeah, thank you so much, James. In looking at the timeline, it seems really ambitious, but I do note that you said a selected or a targeted review. And I'm wondering, on an annual basis, will it continue to be just a select targeted review, so that time frame that seems ambitious, it may be actually doable because you're not looking at the whole portfolio?
Yeah, thank you, Tracy. And that's a great question. This year we are definitely working under a pretty condensed timeline. We do anticipate that, next year we'll have also more programs that are fully launched. So there'll be more opportunity to have information and data and metrics from a broader set of strategic programs. And so we do anticipate potentially reviewing a greater number of programs next year, but also potentially being able to start a little earlier in the process. But yeah, we do have a lot to do over the next few weeks.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, Faith.
Yeah, thank you so much, James and Sam, for introducing this. I just wanted to really, really briefly just thank you for the really thoughtful process. You mentioned, James, the word durable, and I think that's really important. I also think other words that could describe it is like consistent and predictable process that we can use year in and year out, so that it's really valuable for us as a committee in our doing our job, executing on our job to review how things are going. But it's also for our grantees and for program administrators to have an understanding, and for the city itself to have an understanding of when they might come to us when there are issues to suggest that there could be potential changes. So I think that hopefully gives us a lot more predictability for everyone in our communities on when they can anticipate potential opportunities to adjust where things may not be working as well. So just wanted to appreciate you staff for the really, really thoughtful process. And I'm excited to be looking at both the data that we currently have in the process that we're putting together in future use, to look at the data that we have on programs in light of and in the context of what's going on in the city, regionally, federally, across the world. So it's really helpful to be looking at it from all of those perspectives, and appreciate your support putting it together. Excited to be
Yeah. Thank you, Faith.
Ranfis.
Yeah, just want to plus one what my fellow committee members have highlighted here. Just a couple things that I hear that's missing that I would just want to encourage PCEF team to think about either in the short term or in the long term in the review processes. I think one, clarifying the role of community in the evaluation of these programs, I think are really important. Two, I would say, I think, what's the role of academia here? I think there's multiple disciplines in academia that cover a lot of our different program areas. So I think it's just another consideration of, as we're evaluating, not to be too stuck in our bubble, but challenging ourselves not just with community with their expertise, but also academia as well. So I just want to note that I particularly very much care about workforce and ensuring opportunities for workforce in general. So, I'll probably be asking the question like, what's the role of the High Road Advisory Committee in this area? How are we tapping into institutions that academic institutions that review workforce issues such as both University of Oregon's Labor and Education Research Center, as well as institutions like PSU. So I just want to kind of just note that, and just, I see that as a question mark, and hopefully a consideration either in the short term and long term. But yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much. Sam.
Thank you, Ramphis. You said a couple of things, and Tracy, you said a couple of things. I wanted to just kind of share some of my perspective on this. One, I think this has been, it's certainly been an interesting process for me to observe. One is we've got more and more staff capacity that we're building in, and folks are able to get into the work. And, I think, Faith, you said it: durable, consistent, repeatable. And, where we really see this and trying to make sure that we expect to do this year, next year, and then it's going to look a little different that third year, because what we know at that third year is we're talking about the next CIP. And so really it's a fine tuning to sunset, take those lessons learned into the next one. And so I think the piece that we've gone back and forth as a team is, we have to be able to put this into a process so we're not always in a review process, right? We're not always reviewing the entire year, because that just, it becomes too hard. So what can we do that's bound, reasonable, that sets us up to fine tune as we go along year to year, and also gather broader lessons learned for the larger CIP redo. And I think, Ramphis, then to your point, we're building this up. A key example where we've got academia really plugged in. We have a contract with Portland State University to be the evaluator for our e-bike program. One of our next recruitments will be an evaluation specialist on our team, so we can bring more of those evaluation tasks in, because obviously there's a cadence to them and which programs you do them and when, to get that more deeper analysis beyond just, are we hitting our goals? And then, Ramphis, you would like to, maybe I should have shared this. This will be a positive news for you. We're starting our workforce policy coordinator next week, and are really just excited about having someone coming onto the team to focus solely on that policy piece of the work. And so that's just a note that I could have shared earlier that I think was something I figured you'd take particular joy in hearing.
Appreciate that. Yeah, thanks for the response there. And just quickly on that note, again, just want to encourage. Love to note on PSU, just want to encourage again, just the diversity of different academic institutions. And then once you have your workforce coordinator in hand, I think, again, want to sort of do a +1 for universities with Labor Education Research Center. So like we all know, Barbara Bird and, her work from YOLERC as well. And just kind of sort of noting, hey, for future opportunities, that might be a good resource, just like PSU might be an important resource for us on e-bikes.
Thank you so much. Any other comments? I'd like to move us on. James, great work. Thank you so very much. Next slide, please. Which is the funding shift between the CIP Strategic Program 1 and Strategic Program 25. This is an action item, and Sam, I'd like to tee you up again.
Yeah, I think I'll just say, we've got a great group here between our staff here, Wendy Kelfkin, who I'll turn over to share shortly, and then we'll have, once we get to the discussion action item, we'll introduce Danielle Norby from the Portland Housing Bureau, as well as Mary Schoen Clark from Save and CDC. So I just want to acknowledge that and say that we're excited largely to bring this, because this shows just an instance where, how do we get to be nimble and leverage our different tools in order to get good work done? And so with that, I'm not going to say too much more. I'll turn it over to Wendy to walk us through the next slides.
Thanks so much, Sam. Next slide, please. Okay, so the proposal is a $3.7 million program adjustment. And what we're asking is, well, we'll get into that. Both SP1, which is for new construction regulated affordable multifamily housing, and SP25, which is for existing regulated housing, are PHB administered clean energy affordable housing programs. SP1's $60 million allocation is fully committed at this point. SP25, which we just brought online with the last CIP amendment, has $40 million in total and $12 million that we have made an intention to award to date. The authority that we're going to be talking about later is Ordinance 192005, which allows a reallocation under 10% within the same funding area with PCEF committee recommendation and then Bureau Director approval. The rationale: there is a time-sensitive funding gap for Sabin CDC's Avenue Plaza project. It's a 78-unit net zero affordable housing development. Their main source of funding, which is through ORCA funds, and some of their other incentives are at risk without a full funding package by October. They're prepared for groundbreaking possibly before the end of the year. The trade-off. So if we shifted these funds from SP25 to SP1, we would be losing 92 existing units that we would be able to upgrade, but we would be enabling 78 new net zero units to be constructed. Next slide, please. A little bit more information about what has happened in SP1 to date. As you may recall, within SP1, we fund the difference between code and high efficiency measures. We will fund up to 10% of total hard construction costs in an individual project. Eligible projects are those that are directly funded by either PHB or Oregon Housing and Community Services. The reason for that is that those funding sources carry the affordability covenant. The other eligible aspects are that to restrict the leasing of housing units to tenants who meet 60% AMI area median income requirements for a period of at least 30 years, and that the projects have been awarded monies for capital costs through a competitive solicitation process or have private activity bonds. And for this program, we have focused on developments that are at least 20 units or more. Next slide, please. Okay, so the budget for strategic program number one, this was a $60 million fund. We have projects that are either approved or pending approval, totaling $56 million. The admin spend on this to date for PHB's time to administer this program has been just under $1 million, which leaves $2.2 million in admin for the remainder of this CIP. So for PHB to administer these 22 projects that we have approved or will approve through 2029, we have $2.2 million remaining. Next slide, please. Strategic program number one, achievements. We have committed to upgrade, create energy efficiency upgrades in over 2,000 affordable housing units. Of those, about just over 1,300 of them are reserved for 60% AMI or below. And then 782 are reserved for 30% AMI or below. And then finally, 515 are for permanently supportive housing. This is housing for folks transitioning directly from homelessness. We have some pretty amazing accomplishments coming online. You'll see that the table below shows you the difference between the completed projects and those that are under construction. When it's all said and done, we will have installed over 2,000 heating and cooling upgrades. We will have installed just under 700 ventilation upgrades. In 11 of the projects, we will have installed whole building heat pump water heating, so that's serving every unit in those projects. And in 30 instances, we will have installed a combination of either insulation or air sealing or both. We'll install over 3,000 Energy Star appliances.
1,600 kW in PV, 60 kWh in battery storage, 36 EV chargers, and 68 above code trees. Next slide, please. So SP 25, so this is preservation of existing affordable multifamily housing. It's a $40 million fund. The first NOFA has been completed by PHB, and we've committed funding to 4 projects for just over $12 million. The next NOFA will be in 2 years. Within SP 25, PCEF can invest up to $40,000 per unit. And so you see that the commitments that we made to date are to just 326 units. Enter the Avenues project, which is a Sabin CDC project. The total project cost is $58 million. It is replacing an existing 22-unit affordable housing development with 78 units, which will preserve affordability and increase density of housing on this site. It includes 12 integrated units reserved for people experiencing intellectual and developmental disabilities. There will be 4 studios, 39 1-bedrooms and 35 2-bedrooms, which we see as a very positive mix of housing size. 44 units will be available at 60% AMI, 22 units will be available at 30% AMI. There'll be a 60-year affordability term, which is great. There is a relocation plan in place for the current tenants, all of whom I believe are opting to temporarily relocate and then move back to the new development. The request for $3.7 million from PCEF will enable this to be a net zero building, which will include ground source heat pump, PV and battery storage, above code weatherization, and Energy Star appliances. This will be, I believe, our first chance to fund ground source heat pump. Next slide. I'm going to turn the mic back over to Sam.
All right. Wendy, thank you for that. And we'll get to turning over to discussion here shortly. Just got a couple more slides here. But so what I wanted to name, part of what we're leaning on here, and this will be the first time for the committee here, was when we adopted the climate investment plan, we always understood, and yet we never always fully know exactly how they're going to materialize, but that at time to time, there'd be really small changes, minor adjustments that would be needed that otherwise wouldn't necessarily shift funding from green infrastructure to clean energy, but would preserve the overall intent of funding in the different funding areas, but needing to just meet specific program needs, whether that was slightly moving resources or adjusting scopes of work. And so what we had absolutely written in that expectation is to support those minor adjustments, that with the committee's approval and the bureau directors, committee's recommendation, bureau directors approval, we could make those changes. And that's separate from these larger scale reviews of the climate investment plan, broader amendments, that process that we're working through. So that's the authority here that we're bringing this to you all in, is to make those minor administrative adjustments and movements to be responsive to needs that are coming up in the program. And so with that, what I will do is turn it I'll turn it to Dr. Moses. What I have here is a reminder of the decision-making process. In the next slide here, what you're going to see is a draft proposal, and then we'll turn it to you all with an expectation with that sitting out there that you all have your discussion, and I'll turn it over to Danelle as well as Mary, so that they can introduce themselves and they're available for questions and anything you may want to share. So, Dr. Moses, off to you first, just to talk about our process here, to remind everyone and our new members.
That sounds great. Thank you so much. So we use a modified consensus decision-making process. Sam will give us the proposal, put forth for consideration. I'll ask every member for a temperature check. You can give me red, yellow, green. Red, no. Yellow, maybe some reservations. Green, yes. Then we're going to have a discussion. We can then take amendments, and then we'll take a decision. 1 is an affirmation to affirm the proposal. 2 is that you stand aside. And 3 indicates no, that you do not support the proposal. Note that standing aside is counted as a decision to affirm for the purposes of approving the proposal. So let's go ahead and have the proposal, and then I'll take the temperature check. So recommended amending Portland's climate investment plan by shifting 3.7 million from strategic program 25 to strategic program 1. I would love to start off with Tracy. What is your temperature on this?
It's green, Dr. Moses.
Thank you so much, D'Angelo.
Yellow, green. My reason being that I understand that this is something that they want to push forward and that there is a significant gain, but just thinking about 93 units that are not receiving critical and there's specified critical clean energy upgrades, is a little concerning. So yellow, green.
Thank you so much, Faith.
I'm a green, and because D'Angelo offered some comments, I'll just add a little bit here too, and that is that this is 78 units of new units, and 22 units that are getting retrofitted. So, I mean, you can think of it that way. So I don't think it's a loss of 98 units, but I totally hear you. I think this points to the success of Strategic Program 1. And I'm happy that there is this flexibility already written into the CIP and this is with the same bureau, so that's super helpful to move some money to be able to serve Sabin and this what looks like a fantastic development. Excited for it.
Thank you, Faith. Meg.
Yeah, hi. I also feel yellow to green. I really appreciate the good overview, Wendy, of both the broader overview of the two programs that we're talking about. I concur with Faith that it sounds like they're off to really roaring starts with lots of great, like that table of impacts. I want us to be sharing that broadly. I'm excited about all that kind of work that's happening. And I mean, you make the case, it's really well articulated. Of course, when you shift money over, there are trade-offs, and I appreciate that you didn't shy away from that and just explain that this is a time-sensitive thing. Of course, I'm bummed about the trade-offs, but I understand the timeliness. I appreciate leaders from Sabin being here and being willing to answer questions. I don't have specific ones from you because it feels like it was pretty well addressed, but I just appreciate that relationship building effort. Probably my only minor hesitation, and it's not specific to this request, is simply that by doing it, we may set a precedent of sorts for shifting money between programs that are unrelated to this one tonight. But and I just want to be sensitive to like what we ask for when this happens, the quality of deliberation. I never love making a decision in a few minutes in one meeting, and I get this is time sensitive, so that's sort of just the ask. But it has been not my favorite thing about PCEF over the last 5 years are quick decisions because we can't always anticipate the future repercussions. So I think my only like minor hesitation from a strong green is just, I don't know what precedent we're setting by enabling this. And I'm not sure I've thought that through. So if staff or somebody could speak to that a little bit and calm me down, I would be a bright green.
Thank you so much. Anna. Now, I want to ask, is it Anna or Anna?
Great question. It is Anna.
Thank you so much. I
Hold on one second,
appreciate it.
I am a green on this. And I think I share some of the same hesitations, but I also think we have to be innovative and really jump on opportunities and really push things forward. So it's a green for me.
Thank you, Andre.
Yes, I'm green as well. I guess the only point that I'd like to make is I'm still sort of wrapping my head around the scale of PCEF, and so really understanding how quickly or how little or big 3.7 million is in relation to sort of what we do on a regular basis. But I'm green overall. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Renfis.
Thank you. I'm still wrapping my head around this, as well as the trade-offs. I think I'm a red yellow, and I could be green, but I think I'll just pick on Meg's point here, which is, I think we were given an update about this yesterday. So, I think there's a kind of a quick turnaround, and when it comes to setting a precedent for this program, and making changes, like I would hope and expect that different bureaus, different parties that are managing our different strategic programs give the committee advance notice when these proposals are going to be made. So, I do have a question for both for PHB, like when did we know? Why were we not notified earlier as a committee for, I think, what is a precedent setting moment? Like, my second question would be,
Grant fees, we're gonna get there in a second.
okay,
Hang on to your, let me go into discussion and so you can ask those questions.
great, okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think we have everyone's temperatures. And so, Sam, would you like to introduce our guests? And then I'd like to open it up for discussion.
Yeah. So first I'll just give the floor to, I'll just say both your names and then you all introduce yourselves. Maybe just Danelle and Mary, both thank you all for being here. And Don, thank you for working with us for the duration of our work together. And Mary, thank you for working with us on this one. So just turn it to Danelle and then Mary, please introduce yourselves.
Sure. Thanks so much, Sam. Good evening, PCEF Committee. My name is Danelle Norby, she, her pronouns. I'm the Housing Investment Manager at the Portland Housing Bureau, and pleased to be here and happy to answer questions in a minute, but I'll let Mary introduce herself.
Yes, thank you very much. This has been a pleasure listening to you and watching your process. We just might take a few pointers from it. Anyway, yes, I'm Mary Schoen Clark. I'm the Executive Director of SABIN. SABIN CDC primarily is a culturally specific organization. We primarily serve the African American community, and we've been working at it for 32 years. So we're very excited about this project, mainly because to us, it represents all the things that you were talking about your program. In addition to saving energy, conserving energy, helping to control costs for affordable housing. One of the things that's important to us is the impact on our very low income residents and the quality of the heating and cooling in these units and the affordability. With this project, our residents will no longer be required to pay for utility costs. And most of you probably know that it is one of the causes of eviction, which of course we like to prevent homelessness. It's the least expensive way to deal with the homeless issue is to prevent it in the first place. Thank you.
Thank you both so much. So yes, I would love committee members to raise your hand. So I'm going to start with Tracy, then I'll go to you, Ranfees, because I know you have questions. So let's start off with Tracy and then Ranfees.
Yeah, so I just wanted to share when Wendy went through the kind of performance of Strategic Program 1, it was really impressive. So thank you so much for that. It's, the success speaks for itself. I am curious, I am green and will remain green, but I am curious about the 93 existing units. Are those units coming offline? Will they be, demolished? Are they just delayed in terms of upgrades? And I think I heard in Wendy's presentation that, tenants would have essentially first right of refusal. I think I'm interpreting that correctly. Is that true for those who are in the 93 units that are in need of critical energy upgrades?
Thanks for that question, Stacey or Tracy. I can take the first part, and I think Mary, I'll leave the question about relocation to you, if that's okay. So yes, we recognize the trade-off here. The 93 units are not identified units. It's just the amount that could be supported with 3.7 million, the estimated amount of units. So we are, I don't want to downplay the importance of preserving affordable housing. We're very excited about the 12 million in investments that we have recently announced for the 4 projects that Wendy gave an overview for. But as Sam highlighted, I really think this is an opportunity to be strategic and to be nimble and to sort of move on an opportunity that won't last forever because Saban has been so wonderful in assembling a really robust financing package for this project, and it is time sensitive in that those funds will not remain with this project forever. In fact, they won't remain past October if the sort of last piece of financing does not fall into place. So again, I don't want to downplay the importance of these upgrades, things like adding mini splits, adding solar, EV charging stations. That's what's happening in those 4 projects that we highlighted. But the 93 units are not, identified units that are kind of losing their award. It's just a trade-off, as someone mentioned, inherent trade-offs in these decisions. We do believe that with the awards we've made to date, that we're on track to actually still achieve the goal of 800 or more units preserved in 10 or more projects. We leveraged the PCEF funding with other sources. In this last round, we paired it with federal home and CDBG dollars. And so we were actually able to do even more upgrades and really stretched the efficiency of that funding. So yeah, I hope I've answered that question. I think there was a question about right of return for tenants. And so I'll let Mary answer that.
Absolutely. Yes, we follow HUD relocation rules and requirements and also go beyond. We currently, all of the residents are indicating that they want to return. So there'll be a temporary relocation period while demolition and new construction is underway. And then the residents will move back to the new building. We're very excited that everyone does want to return because they were also, of course, offered the opportunity for permanent relocation in 42 months of rent assistance in a new location. So they did have an option because the building will take 2 years to build. If it would have been just 1 year, then everyone would have been offered temporary relocation. So we're very, very excited to keep our residents because, as you know, we're culturally specific, as I said earlier, and we're very proud of our 78% occupancy of primarily African American community in Northeast Portland. So this is not just a statistic for us; it's who we are, and having these residents want to come back and live with Saban in this new property is what, one of the main goals that we had for this project. I just wanted to make one other comment. The 22 existing units are very much at risk. The units are nearing the very end of their useful life. And one other observation is that our elderly clients who have lived with us for significant portions of their lives can no longer climb up the exterior stairways to get to their units. So essentially, they're in a position of potentially being forced to move from, a location in the neighborhood where they've lived all their lives, just simply because of the design of the existing building. So, and also if we were to lose the building, we would lose those Section 8 permanent vouchers. And that would mean we'd lose the ability to help people pay only 30% of their income for their housing. So there really is a major preservation component of this project that doesn't always get highlighted. And I appreciate the opportunity to actually even be able to talk about that with that amazing question that was asked earlier.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Bob.
Ranfis.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the responses so far. And I do want to just say I do appreciate having both PHB and Saban CDC be here and talk this through. I think it helps paint a better picture of what's being before us. I do just want to acknowledge my own messiness in terms of just, chewing and digesting information, as well as being a good steward and making a timely decision. With that said, I do recognize just the importance of, building more units of affordable housing, everything that's been said so far. getting battery, getting solar, that feels all very mission related to PCEF. So I do feel like the relevancy is there. I think my biggest, I think question here is just I guess again the importance here of just process and precedent. I think it's just I think it's important just for the committee itself to be notified early and often when these decisions or recommendations are being asked for program changes. I guess I'm just curious. Yeah, I think, one, how timely is this decision? Could this decision be made 2 weeks from now and still meet the timeline for Sabin CDC to keep its funding intact? And then just to curious, what could have gone better here to notify the committee? I did look up online the public wage determination for Boley for this project, and it did already state for this project 3.7 million committed from PCEF. So that was submitted back in July. So I feel like there was some things already moving earlier. I guess I'm just curious, what could have gone better just to notify the PCEF committee, just again on this process and how we could have digested this information earlier, back in maybe as early as June. Seems like almost clearly as early as July, but it just seems like there were things we could have done over the summer to receive information and make a timely decision in August. But yeah, just kind of curious what could have been better, done better there.
Thank you, Renfis.
I'll start, and I might ask Mary or Sam or Wendy to jump in here, but thank you. I appreciate the concerns, and I certainly appreciate the gravity of setting a new precedent and worrying about what comes after, and agree that we never love putting pressure on time-sensitive requests like this on the committee. The PHB learned about this project, I want to say around April, May of this year, and the fact that it was moving through the award process at the state in a successful manner. And Sabin was coming to us and asking, this is the last piece we need for the financing stack. What is possible? And so we were at that point, we had allocated all of the 60 million from Strategic Program 1. We were in conversation with the program staff at PCEF around are there any options here? I want to really thank Wendy for being in close communication with the state to explore when could PCEF come into this project at a later date, and could the project still move forward successfully? And it's taken some time to really sort of get answers on that over the course of the summer. It has become clear, more recently that no, there really isn't an option for the project to move to financial closing and have the PCEF come in at a later date when there may be another, for example, tranche of SP1 funding. And so at that point, I think we started talking more about creative solutions, and through which PHB proposed this shift from SP25 to SP1. And I think in addition to just recognizing the strategic nature of this investment and the fact that it really pushes the clean energy, the efficiency measures farther than any of our other SP1 projects to date with the net zero building standard, I think as someone pointed out, it fits within the spirit of the preservation pool of funds with these 22 units that are being replaced and the focus on anti-displacement. And so it felt like an opportunity to do something with money that otherwise would be sitting there until we do another round of PCEF application in 2 years. So, and I don't know if PCEF or
I mean, Dana, you actually hit it really well and hit all the points. I was like, oh yeah, that right. There's that. So I think as Dana said, it's figuring out these pieces and figuring out what is it that we can provide. Is there something we can provide that gets something, yes, while we let our processes play out, it's always challenging to figure out what do we need to be able to, how do we be nimble? And I think we got to the end of the road on this one, and I think this was the ultimate option of if we can at least just move funding from this one program to the other. I think when PHP brought that up, we said, well, actually, we have a path, and we're still really a year and a bit into our CIP, haven't leveraged that path. We're like, this would be the opportunity to leverage it. If there's one time when we would define what would we make that leverage that avenue where we're able to move those shifts, this would be it. Obviously, we always hope to communicate earlier, and I don't want to say life happens, but it certainly does. And so I think that's what I have to share here. But see if there are any other questions and whether there's anything Mary or others want to chime in or add.
One observation that we've been running into with every funder for our project, and that is the ORCA process is so new, and it's essentially turned everything upside down, where previously you would apply and receive your tax credit allocation and then start lining up all your other funding sources. Now it's you have to line up all your other funding sources and then get the allocation. And so this is really caught almost everyone that we've certainly ever worked with kind of off guard. Now, obviously, through working with us, they're now like, oh my goodness, okay, we're gonna really have to even look at our processes now and try to realign them in order to match the new process that Oregon Housing and Community Services has implemented this year. So it was a little bit of a surprise for everyone.
Thank you, Mary. What does ORCA stand for?
Oh boy. Whale.
Whale, yes, I got that. You got it.
Yeah.
I think it's or
It's
Oregon centralized application process. So it's like the funding process through OHCS to receive tax credits.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. Meg, you're going to wrap us up here because I want to go on to amendments and then into the decision. So you're our last person to be able to ask questions.
Well, I just want to circle back to a point I made in my temperature check round, and I think Ranfis followed up on is the precedent setting outside of this particular project. And so maybe this is a Sam or Wendy question more than anybody. But, you know, in this case, let's say we decide to do it and it's kind of clean between Housing Bureau and they know they're not going to have the other 3 million. There's trade-offs, but it's a clean match. There's no other money. But I just picture like, will you come back 10 more times? Or like, will other departments start like talking behind closed doors and then like pitching things to us? And all of a sudden, like, it's just like a free for all of moving things around out there. Like, I guess I just want some sense that that's not what we're headed to do. That yes, we want to be responsive to opportunities and to things, but I'm a little concerned that like, especially we didn't really have a clear process. It's just a quick email the day before and here we are. You know, that's not the process I want to set up for future amendments. We want to do our annual review process. And so I want to put guardrails around like, generally we're aiming for annual review, not like a lot of one-offs if we can help it, because it's just not a great way to run a big program.
One, I think I'll just say the primary guardrail is the ability to move funds and keep the funds both one within the same funding area, two underneath 10% of any given funding area. You can't move any more than 10% of a given funding area. So a funding area's allocation. So those are the scale of movement is, yes, I think to Andre's point here, maybe large in the grand scheme, but fairly small when we talk about PCEF and PCEF projects. And so that is just one limitation in terms of it is really small adjustments here, and this neatly fit that. And I think it's that it's hard. We'd always love to have a perfect rubric of exactly this is when we tap on this. And I think part of that is, you know, we have committee members here that certainly while there's some rolling off, we'll have many that are going to be here for a longer time with us to help sort of calibrate and say, to continue to ask that question. In this instance, I certainly think, yes, this can't find an opportunity that feels more like perfectly designed for that sort of administrative fix to capture an opportunity that's here in front of us that won't exist down the road. And so that's the extent of which I can answer that. But Obviously, I think you all are in your role to ask these exact questions, and I expect this question to be asked if we come back to you with something like this that doesn't meet this mold.
Thank you, Sam. Faith?
Yeah, I just wanted to share, Megan Rampies, that I shared your concern around precedent, and I got really comfortable because I think it's what Sam just said was that like the circumstances are quite unique. What the reason I was uncomfortable is because we're going through this process of evaluating where we are in the CIP. So we're doing that evaluation process. And I'm like, wait a minute, like if we're in the evaluation process, let's do it in the evaluation process. But this is actually already written into the code. So somebody could already come do this if for some reason their circumstances met this. But in fact, each of the strategic programs, right, are not going to have a real interest in doing this because they don't have to shift money around that they have the same priorities for. So I do think that this is not precedent setting in that it's, well, I guess it is because it's already in the CIP to provide for this exact possibility to happen where there's a need. And this is a true demonstrated need. So I don't think that we're going to hear bureaus, for example, coming and doing backdoor deals to move money between programs when it's limited to 10% and it has to be in the same area. And they all have competing needs, right? So I really did get to the place where, oh, this is in the code. This exactly, without knowing it, meets those code requirements. And so this really isn't around shifting money between competing priorities. At least I got really comfortable that this was not a precedent-setting problem.
Thank you, Faith. I would really like to go to amendments. Ranfis, what's your observation, question, thought?
Yeah, I mean, this could be a segue to the amendments. Faith, I do appreciate, Faith, your response there. I will just say, like, I think ignorance is kind of bliss. Like, we kind of have to trust the programs, the program managers. But, once you bring something to the committee, our precedent has always been to say, hey, let's slow down. Hey, bureaus, agencies, show your work. Show your work about why we should make this change or change funds. I think here we are talking about a trade-off, and I think that's why I think it requires a deliberation. I want to respect PHB's time and Saban CD's time. Like, now that there's more information being presented to us, it's been our precedent to ask good questions, and I think I'm not going to ask our guest here, Saban CDC, to defend its dignity on questions that I think I would love to send to them in advance, which we have done for past bureaus. So I think that's just one thing I would just kind of add a caveat and note. And I think in the past we've always suggested that, hey, we want bureaus and different agencies and staff, when we are given programmatic changes, hey, give us a heads up, give us 2 weeks, give us a month. That is important. Like, it can be very disruptive over time once there are several programmatic changes or votes like this that we need to make. It kind of does disrupt our agenda. So that's, I do want to note that it's not a problem today, but it has been a problem in the past that I just want to caution this committee. Structure is important, process is important, outcomes are important. And if we get sidetracked with a lot of different new urgent ideas, like, I think it'll sidetrack ourselves from important strategic agenda items that we need to get to. So I just want to note that, and I want to send a signal to at least the city that good governance means, hey, let's talk about this early, let's talk about this often. Let's not make folks, set up committee members to make quick decisions, but let's set them up to make timely, sound decisions. Like, that to me feels important. So with that said, I think one of the precedents that we've set in the past that, we want to put forward potentially as a potential amendment is we've either asked hey, could we take two weeks to, further take some time to make a decision, make some follow-up questions if we need to, I'm missing some key voices in this committee that I typically would want to hear from. Robin is one of those folks. The other precedent we've set when we had to make a very timely decision, when folks are like, nope, we got to make a decision today, is I've asked for folks like, hey, how do we ensure that there's good community coalition support? So I've asked for in the past amendments for things like community benefit agreements. To me, it's just like a trade-off to ensuring we make timely decisions where we've just not had enough time or deliberation to make that. Those would be considerations. Again, I hate to put that on to both PHB and SABE and CDC, but again, it's like the nature, I think, of how we've approached past work and past precedent changes. So it's kind of that, I think, what I would propose here. But again, didn't want to inherently put PHB and SABE and CDC on the spot.
Thank you. But you will be, but that's okay. So D'Angelo and Tracy, I'm going to defer to you. Do you want to ask the question? Do we have to decide today, or can you do this? And maybe this is a question to Sam. Can this be decided offline 2 weeks from now, or does it need to be in a public meeting today?
I think realistically, the next committee meeting is on September 10th. So I think realistically, I would not expect a meeting before September 10th. This group is challenging to schedule with, so I think just barring that, that's the next committee meeting. So then I think it's a question to SABE and CDC around around what that means for them.
Beautiful, Mary.
Yes, thank you for the question. And I would love at some point to talk about the community benefit, because Saban has built in many components that I'd love to discuss. I think with the new ORCA process with the state, they're being very rigid around closing dates. And this is because theoretically, projects that got the tax credit award in the past waited many, sometimes multiple years to actually use the tax credits. And that was not going to work because the federal government then was very unhappy around how there were so many credits building up in the state of Oregon that had not been deployed. I'm sure that sounds familiar. And so they redesigned the process in order to ensure that the projects could close swiftly. And Saban ensured, provided assurances to the state that upon award, we would, and they literally picked a close date for us, which is October 30th. And while that sounds far away, we have many components that we will need to pull together. It's a lot like, those old popcorn machines where all the popcorn's in the air and you have to grab it all, put the lid on it, close, and then you can start your project. And so that includes, lenders and the bond councils. Like, we technically should already be in bond council meetings right now in order to meet the deadline. We have a close date on October 30th. What is not known in this very moment is how strict. Essentially, what we're under is, if we cannot close by our close date, we're at risk of losing the credits, and then we're at risk of losing all the other funding. And probably the thing we're running fastest away from is losing the ground loop heat pump source tax credit. We all know that the solar is sunsetting, correct? But the ground loop heat pump source credit is still there. I think it's just because people don't hear about it a lot, so it's still kind of hiding. And we want to be sure to be able to utilize that in order to actually have the system in the building. Without the tax credit, the economics of it prevent us from using that 50-year useful life and actually delivering the comfort that the system provides to the residents we serve. So that's really the answer. The truth is the ability to get to close by the end of October is going to be the race of our lives. You know, would a day matter? Probably not. Would September matter? Possibly. All dependent on what Oregon Housing and Community Services and how strict they're going to be with their new process, which says if we don't close on time, we lose the credits.
Thank you so much, Mary. Faith and then Tracy.
Tracy, I want to go to you first.
Yeah, thank you so much, Faith. Dr. Moses, can you recount our initial vote? I thought I heard maybe 4 or 5 greens, a couple of yellow greens, and maybe one potential red yellow.
Yes. Tracy green, D'Angelo, yellow green, Faith green, Megan yellow green, Ranfis red yellow, Andre green, Anna green.
Okay, and then you did pose a question to both D'Angelo and I, wondering about, you know, delaying for 2 weeks. And my question would be to my fellow committee members, being respectful of Ranfis and Megan's, you know, concern about the timing of this request and the precedent-setting nature, perhaps, of the request. Was there anything in the answers that were given that would turn any of the greens to red or any of the greens to yellow? Because if not, I don't necessarily know the benefit of an additional 2 weeks for us to still come back with essentially the same vote. So I would like to at least get to the next stage. I don't know if we're supposed to be in discussion stage yet, or if we're taking another, you know, vote and seeing where that lands before, you know, there's a decision about more days to consider and then we deliver the same results. I would, you know, I'm certainly sensitive to Sabin CDC and the level of effort it takes to pull together any type of response to pull together a package. So, you know, would like to just, you know what the next step is regarding the next temperature check.
Yes, so I would like to, any amendments.
Yeah, that's it, amendments.
Any amendments, and Faith, wondering if you have an amendment or if you have a question.
I would like to suggest, given the initial temperature check and what we've just heard from Mary and her excellent popcorn analogy, that we move without amendment to a vote.
Very good. May I have a second?
I
second that.
Very good. Thank you. So,
hold on. Well, hold on. I did propose an amendment. So did my motion for an amendment not get considered for?
It just got considered.
Okay.
Of not moving forward with an amendment for 2 weeks.
I just didn't get a confirmation for a motion, whether there was a motion or not for my motion.
All right, let's do this again. So is there, Ranfis, would you like to put this motion forward? This amendment forward?
Sure. Yeah. I will just say, just to clarify my end, I think there were some more questions about timelines and fundings that raise more questions for me, but you know, I want to trust.
Please put the amendment forward.
The amendment that I want to put forward is take Sabin CDC's word here. I would like to put forward a motion that adds language that we will provide funding if there is demonstration for community benefits and community coalition support, diverse coalition support for this project.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we have an amendment on the table. I'd like to see the support for the amendment. May I see a raised hand to support the amendment?
Could you just clarify, Ramfis? Do you mean like could that be in like it would be a tentative approval pending receipt in writing or something like that? Is that what you're?
Yeah, it could be a MOU, could be an agreement, just demonstration of, yeah, a demonstration of community benefit, which I think I heard Saban CDC, there was commitment there. I have some, yeah, and then just demonstration of coalition support. So in the form of an MOU and or a community benefit agreement.
Thank you for that. Renfees, I want to clarify that you are supporting, that you're asking, that your amendment is yes to support with an MOU. And I see a nod yes.
With, yeah, an MOU that demonstrates diverse community coalition support for the project.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for that clarity. So each committee member, you can say 1, to affirm the proposal, 2 to stand aside, or 3 to indicate no. Faith.
Are we in discussion or you want to do this?
I want to do this amendment.
Okay. I'm a no without further discussion.
Okay. Meg.
I still have follow-up clarification. I assume that's within like the next meeting. You know, it's just like I want to be clear what I'm voting on. So I think I'm in support.
Thank you. Andre.
I'm going to stand aside. Is that what the proper?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anna.
I am also going to stand aside.
Very good. Thank you. Tracy.
I'm gonna stand aside.
D'Angelo.
I'm gonna say no, but I think I'm just very unclear about the purpose of the amendment. So yeah, I'll stay there.
All right. And who am I missing? Ranfees.
I made the motion, so I'm not sure if I'm allowed to vote.
Okay, so I have 3 stand asides, 2 no's, and 1 yes. So I would like to go back to the original proposed language and make the decision on the original proposed language. So if we could show that, that would be great. Recommend amending Portland's climate investment plan by shifting 3.7 million from strategic program 25 to strategic program 1. Faith, do you say yes, no,
I approve. Thank you.
Pardon?
I approve. Thank you.
Great, Faith. Meg.
I didn't want to go next. Well, I was trying to pull up my email because I thought we used Vista 5 voting. Like, do you have a slide that reminds us of our voting that we usually do?
I think we're not in a temperature check, Meg. We're actually voting.
Yeah, but I thought we used to do a Vista 5 voting, and have we changed that?
Each committee member can, it says decision. We're doing the decision right now.
I know, but I think we used to have different decision protocols. So I was just trying to pull up like a previous agenda. So I'm going to pass until I find that because we used to have a slide up that would give guidance on how we voted. And it didn't
Yeah,
used to
just so you know, the Vista 5 from what, as my memory was as we were doing temperature checks.
Oh, okay. But it just allowed a little variation in like, I don't know. Gonna pass for a second.
Okay. Andre.
I affirm.
Anna.
Yes, for me.
Thank you. D'Angelo.
I affirm.
Thank you. Ranfees.
You know, I don't know how to vote for this one. As I noted, just need more time to make a sound decision on this one. And last time we made a decision that we didn't take our time. We got burnt by it. So
Decide, is that
I will be a no vote.
you'll be a no? Okay, very good. Tracy?
It's a one affirm.
Yes, very good. Meg, circling back to you.
Yeah, I'm going to stand aside.
Stand aside. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 yeses. 1 stand aside and 1 no. So this passes. This is an affirmative. Very good. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I would love to take a very, very brief 5-minute break before we bring in our next speaker. Just a quick 5 minutes. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, welcome back. That was great work. Really appreciate everybody's attention and everybody's willingness to step in and have a great conversation. So thank you so very much. Sam, I'd like to tee you up again for the PCEF and the mayor's executive order.
Oh, so the beauty of this one is I'll certainly be here to start talking about some of the actions that we're working through, but I'd love to turn it over to Deputy City Administrator Donnie Oliveira for Community Economic Development to broadly share on this, and I'll be on standby to chime in as questions come up that are relevant for me.
Thank you so much.
All right,
Welcome in, Donnie.
Great, thanks, Sam. Hey, everyone. For those who I haven't met before, my name's Donnie Oliveira. I use he, him pronouns. And as Sam said, I'm the Deputy City Administrator here at the city for Community Economic Development. Really, this was just an opportunity for me to connect with you all. First, to answer any questions, or second, to answer any questions. But first, just to provide a little bit of situational awareness around the mayor's executive order. For those who haven't been tracking, I'm sure you all have, though. But earlier this month, the mayor signed, it actually was July 31st, the mayor signed into effect an executive order that directed all city bureaus to ensure that we were following all anti-discriminatory laws and to ensure that our programs were compliant with federal policies related to civil rights acts and in compliance with executive orders of the federal government. The why behind that is important just to convey just for a moment. For those who have maybe seen the news or not, but just to be clear, the city receives through grants and entitlements several hundred millions of dollars from the federal government for things related largely to transportation and housing programs. And as a part of that process of receiving those dollars, we go through a certification process. And one of the stipulations of that certification process is compliance with federal law. And depending on the administration, the enforcement and the scrutiny of that certification varies. I think it's fair to say that this particular administration has made it very clear that they are attacking largely diversity, equity, inclusionary policies around the country. And so made that a target of that, a specific angle of that certification. Out of abundance of caution, the mayor's executive order directed the city to really contemplate any areas that might put us at risk of not receiving those crucial dollars. This is not unique to PCEF. It was contemplated across the whole city. So city leadership with the city attorney's office, our Office of Equity and Human Rights, started to do an analysis. And really out of an abundance of caution, we identified some areas that could be at risk. So it might require some, a deeper analysis for ways to improve our compliance. One thing that was really clear, I hope the folks had seen it in the mayor's executive order, is while we're triaging this moment in time, this does not change the intent of our programs, our commitments to our values. And it certainly doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to put up a fight to challenge the federal administration's jurisdiction over this. We're party to several lawsuits coming out of Washington and California that are challenging the federal government's role in our ability to run our local government. I don't think it should be lost on anybody. Some of the hypocrisy about, in some cases, wanting local jurisdictions to have control over policies and others wanting to have control litigated and by the federal government. So that was sort of the framework of the EO. I'm going to let Sam and others speak to what PCEF's contemplated, but just wanted to offer the areas that we're most concerned about is how we're ensuring that our commitment to working with local subcontractors, increasing opportunities for emerging businesses in Portland still exists, especially when it comes to PCEF, those that are serving our climate justice goals, ensuring that we're meeting our wage standards, ensuring that people have good living wage jobs as a part of the funding mechanisms of PCEF are still very important, but not just for PCEF. This applies to all of our contracts across the city. We're also looking at things like the Children's Levy and our arts tax grants programs. There's a lot of places where we feel like this is an opportunity for us to pivot, be strategic, not in how we deliver those services, but frankly, how we stay compliant with federal law. But most importantly, like we're doing this at a staff level so that staff are able to guide, working with city attorneys to ensure that nothing changes about program delivery. And I think that's really important for you all to contemplate as PCEF staff bring you all areas for your consideration for potential code changes, that you all are aware of what we're solving for, not just for this program, but across the city, because it is not unique to PCEF. And the last thing I'll just say about this, like what a incredible time to try to be navigating programs like this. They're more important than ever. They continue to be, under attack and scrutinized at a way that is not healthy for our communities, but frankly, just put so much pressure on staff. So I want to thank staff that are in the room for their continued commitment to delivering, the goals of the program as we navigate this uncertain time. So I'm going to just stop there to see if there's any questions. And I think there's going to be some chance to talk about specific changes later, but I'll yield my time.
Thank you, Donnie. Sam, any comment or any questions? I'd like to open the floor for any questions. Tracy, and then May.
Thank you so much, Donnie. I'm curious whether the Attorney General Pam Bondi's memo that came out, I guess, right before the mayor certified that we would be in compliance, the city of Portland. I'm curious whether that further direction and maybe even narrower interpretation has impacted PCEF. Certainly we're still going to have to comply, but I'm just wondering, did that more narrow interpretation even further impact the work that the team will have to do?
Thank you for the question, Tracy. The place we're coming from is we're looking at the certain types of language that, well, let me take a step back. We're playing from the position of we want to be able to defend all of our actions in the court of law. So that's sort of the barrier. So we're not trying to get into the game of semantics. Okay. We just responded to Pam Bondi's letter earlier this week about our particular opinion about their stance, and I'll let the legal team sort that out in the courts. But from a programmatic perspective of how we administer our programs, we're looking at it from a perspective of how do we ensure that the language you're using would meet the bar of legal defense, and so that's sort of our continued goal. We don't think this is a court of public opinion or a place of media that we're going to win these sorts of battles. This will play out over time. So it's really getting our programs in order. And there's also an element of consistency here. Part of the former government sort of allowed bureaus and programs to kind of function independently. And in this new structure, it allows us to actually work together, ensure that we're consistent and sharing best practices across the programs that are doing well in this area. And I want to just also offer this kudos to the PCEF staff and this committee for being way ahead of the curve, because we had already started to pivot some of our strategies within the CIP. PCEF is largely, used as an example of ways to be strategic in how we frame our programming.
Yeah, thank you so much for that response. That's really reassuring.
Thank you. Meg.
I'll be brief. I'll try. I get where times we're in. I've had clients that have to do the same thing. I wish we were being more aggressive like Seattle and suing. To be frank, that's my personal opinion. But just as a PCEF member, I'm wondering, for example, laws can change and we may anyway. What if Seattle's movement goes forward and they are found to be in the right? And then we've done the work to match the current Trump administration's guidance. That's a question. But also the memo notes, in certain situations, the city can conduct a disparity study. And that feels really appropriate for PCEF, which is the climate justice program. It's one of our guiding principles and is all over the place in our program. So it feels like we'd be a very relevant program for that particular bullet point. Could you comment on that?
Yeah, so thanks for the question, Meg. So we have identified areas where we think a disparity study would be, most applicable, and yes, PCEF is on that list, so that's true. And then also, I just briefly alluded to it, but we are party to several lawsuits against the federal government, largely as party to. So San Francisco has one, King County, obviously where Seattle's at, has another one. So we are very much active using our authority to be party to those issues that are challenging the federal government. So we are not just sitting back; we are also proactively challenging some of their opinions and standing.
Thank you so much, Donnie. Ranfees.
Yeah, appreciate the update. Agree with Meg. I feel like whether we're tackling DEI as an issue here at the city or clean energy, I really hope that the city can be more progressive and forward in making sure that it protects the city's interests and how we are able to build out clean energy projects in a timely manner to reduce our emissions and ensure that we're creating opportunities and job creation and training as it's intended. So I'd hope and expect a high standard for the city to do that and defend that work. So, I just want to sort of continue to say that, because I think the future is about being audacious, defending, I think our interests as a city to advance the future that we want. With that said, on the code, the PCEF code, it does state that when it comes to updating workforce, equity plans and goals, it does state that equity stakeholders will be consulted. Is that occurring? How is that occurring? Is the hybrid advisory committee being consulted when it comes to any changes to the PCEF plans and goals when it comes to workforce and workforce equity?
Yeah. Don, if I could take this one.
Yeah, please.
So we've, following Mayor's executive order, I think if I recall right, our last hybrid advisory council meeting met just the day afterwards. So it was fairly fresh. And at that point, we were still making sure and doing the rounds and understanding the work ahead of us, which we continue to do. We will be meeting in September and continuing the conversation with the High Roads Advisory Council exactly on our reporting standards, on our goals. And I think the nice element of this is we've been going through a broader evaluation in no small part because of the complexity of the investments that we're making to make sure that we're in alignment across the city in terms of how we are working on workforce and contractor equity goal setting, making sure we're consistent. So this is, in a weird way, the dovetailing of this has worked out well, where because we're making investments in PBOT, because we're making investments in Water Bureau, because we're making investments in Prosper, we've at the same time been seeing the clear need to develop more alignment so that our data infrastructure and the information we collect in our goal setting makes sense across our investments. And so that's, in some ways, that's the lens in which we're continuing the conversation with the High Roads Advisory Council. How do we bring alignment and use this as an opportunity to make sure that we're consistent across the city in a way that makes sense, that has meaningful information that we can actually act on. So that's certainly on the agenda, and that's a conversation that we're going to continue to pick back up with the High Roads Advisory Council in September. I suspect it won't end there. That won't be the last group that we continue the conversation. It'll certainly go beyond that, but that's our starting place to further the conversation.
Thanks. I appreciate the response. Just Sam, Donnie, just expect me to reach out to other committee members just to ensure that when it comes to the PCEF and city code, that in the section that says the committee will develop plans in consultation with workforce and contractor equity stakeholders, and incorporates best practices for city procurement practices. I think that's just an area that I want to ensure that we're as a committee, that we're ensuring that we're living both the spirit and the letter of that code. So I just want to make sure that as a committee member, as a committee, we're advocating, make sure that as the city is making these changes, especially when it comes to PCEF, that we're at least living the letter and spirit on that code.
Thank you so much, Ranfees. Any other questions before we wrap up this evening? D'Angelo. Bring
Thank
us
you.
home.
I don't really have a question. I just want to 1+1 emphasis comment about the committee's involvement. But also I just want to just end on a positive note. I understand that these are troubling times, but I am grateful to committee members and I'm grateful to community members that have continued to support the program, the perspectives they bring to keep us in alignment and make sure that even amidst this, we are still in alignment with community priorities. And understand that the community is really the long arm of the law when it comes to why we are here as PCEF committee members. And we are here, simply put, to represent the community's mission, vision, values, and ethics, and how this program is delivered in these particularly tumultuous times. So we'll have to be very intentionally creative about how we continue to meet the standards we have for community engagement, and very deliberate about how we'll continue to achieve the set goals. There are a lot of methodologies at our fingertips that I think we will be very creative in ensuring that PCEF's mission and its North Star does not change. And again, us being representatives of the community that are impacted by PCEF, that is our charge that we will see through in this time and any other time. No ifs, ands, or buts. So I'll leave it there, and I just appreciate everybody for participating, especially for our community members that have been very vocal about how we move forward collectively.
Thank you so much, D'Angelo. Thank you, everyone. If there's no more questions or comments, I would love to wrap this up at 7:58 this evening, and we will see you next month. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.